Joshua Richards has hinted that things could go terribly wrong for Bear Wolf as he appears in court. The character is set to face trial next week over the death of Ray Walters after killing him earlier this year while trying to protect Paddy Dingle and Dylan Penders. In upcoming emotional episodes, Bear will be called to testify after fellow worker Simo gives evidence that ends up putting him in a difficult position. Discussing Bear's experience in court, Richards explained that the character becomes easily annoyed and angry, particularly because he struggles with detail and finds it hard to navigate a strict legal system. He added that Bear lacks the skills needed to handle such a situation calmly, suggesting that his time on the witness stand could turn into a complete mess. The actor also referred to Bear's earlier admission about killing Ray in order to protect Paddy and Dylan. Richards went on to say that Bear is not very sharp and ends up making things worse for himself and others by confessing to something he didn't actually do. He clarified that Bear never intended to kill Ray or anyone else, as he isn't naturally violent. Instead, he's someone who has been deeply affected by prolonged abuse, which has left him emotionally detached. According to Richards, Bear doesn't expect a positive outcome and is mentally ready to spend the rest of his life behind bars. He believes he deserves punishment because a life was lost, even though the circumstances are complicated. The actor further explained that Bear enters the trial with no sense of hope, accepting his fate as something he must endure. In his mind, it's simply a matter of facing the consequences and serving time. Even though support from his counselor could help his case, Bear is emotionally shut down and unable to recognize that anyone is standing up for him. Richards described the situation as overwhelming, saying Bear is stuck in a state of despair where he feels everything is already over. Danny Miller has explained why he prefers not to let his son watch Emmerdale, despite playing Aaron Dingle on and off since 2008. The actor is a father to 3 young children, Albert, Edith, and Vincent, whom he shares with his wife, Steph Jones. Speaking on the You Don't Know You're Born podcast, which he co-hosts alongside Brooke Vincent and Nigel Clucas, Danny mentioned that his eldest son Albert has recently shown a natural interest in performing, including singing, dancing, and acting. During a discussion about balancing careers and parenting, the group talked about whether their children understand what they do for a living. Danny shared that while Albert is beginning to grasp that he's an actor, he hasn't introduced him to the show itself, as it could be confusing. He explained that seeing his father kiss someone other than his mother on screen, regardless of whether it's a man or a woman, might be difficult for a young child to understand. From Albert's perspective, it would raise simple but tricky questions about why his dad isn't showing affection to his mum instead. Brooke Vincent agreed, noting that it could be equally puzzling for children to watch their parents act out scenes involving intimacy or conflict with other people. Danny added that, aside from romantic scenes, his character is sometimes involved in arguments or emotional moments, which could also be unsettling for a child to see. He also shared that encounters with fans often prompt questions from Albert, especially when people ask for photos with him. These moments help open up conversations about his job and why he's recognized in public. Meanwhile, Brooke recalled taking her son Mex to visit the set of Coronation Street in 2023, where she previously played Sophie Webster. She posted photos from the visit, reflecting on how much had changed since she was last there before his birth. Brooke is now preparing to return to television, having joined the cast of Hollyoaks. On the podcast, she spoke about the challenges of shifting back into full-time work while balancing life as a mother. 2 newcomers shook things up in Emmerdale in 2025, bringing prolonged suffering to several villagers. Celia Daniels and Ray Walters were ultimately exposed as a mother and son pair running a criminal enterprise from their farm. They were behind a series of disturbing crimes, including coercing young people into drug dealing, forcing individuals into sex work, trafficking vulnerable adults, and exploiting many as unpaid laborers. Among those trapped was Bear Wolf, who fell into Ray's control during a time when he felt unwanted by his loved ones. he was kept in grim conditions in an attic with other victims. Because of the sustained abuse, Bear spent a long time convinced that Ray and Celia weren't doing anything wrong. Everything shifted earlier this year when Bear managed to flee and return to the village. Upon entering the Woolpack, he discovered Ray threatening to kill Paddy Kirk. Acting out of trauma and confusion, Bear grabbed Ray and fatally choked him. Afterwards, Paddy and Dylan Penders attempted to hide what had happened in order to protect Bear from prison. However, with DS Walsh already investigating the pair's crimes, the truth eventually surfaced. All three now face court proceedings. Bear will be questioned about Ray's death, the attempted cover-up, and his experience as a victim of modern slavery. Paddy must answer for interfering with justice, while Dylan will also be asked about the drug dealing he was forced into. The situation becomes even more complicated when April Windsor is called to testify, as she too suffered under Ray and Celia's control. As the trial begins, both legal teams present their arguments before the judge and jury. Bear becomes overwhelmed as he is forced to revisit the trauma of Ray's death and his time at the farm. Tension rises further when April gives evidence but struggles under questioning, leaving her shaken. Dylan later speaks for the defense, describing how Bear saved both him and Paddy, but it remains unclear if his testimony will carry enough weight. Another victim, Simo, also takes the stand, and his account causes Bear to spiral. After the session ends, solicitor Zara explains that Bear must testify next. As the following day arrives, Paddy and the family gather in court ahead of Bear's appearance. His words could determine the outcome of the case, but whether they will lead to freedom or imprisonment remains uncertain. A dramatic twist unfolded in Emmerdale as Bear Wolf was left stunned after spotting someone from Celia Daniels' farm, despite believing they had died. Bear is currently behind bars, just days away from a trial where he will be questioned over the killing of Ray Walters. His son, Paddy Kirk, is also set to give evidence, along with Dylan Penders, as both face charges of interfering with justice. All three understand that their chances of walking free are low. The case against Bear is strong, and the prolonged effort by Paddy and Dylan to conceal the truth and mislead the police only worsens their situation, making it difficult to argue their innocence. The series airs on weeknights at 8 p.m. on ITV1 and is also available for streaming on ITVX.